I don't quite understand how they persist in this narrative, but they do, talking about how the far right is so incredibly violent when video after video after video shows the Proud Boys milling about singing songs and waving flags, and Antifa beating random people. This morning I made a video and I thought it'd be good to put a little bow on it, tie off today's segment talking about Antifa and the news. So here's the thing. Vox calling out Trump says, effectively that he's not challenging the alt-right. Well, there was no alt-right in Portland because apparently you didn't do a Google search. The Proud Boys denounced the alt-right, and while you can criticize them for having some people who are affiliated or who, so at a certain point, the Proud Boys did have alt-right people. They denounced it. They complained about it. You can't call the people who denounced the alt-right alt-right. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. They purged these people, criticized them heavily, and the Proud Boys can be criticized, for sure, just make sure you're in the realm of reality. And it makes no sense when Vox says the Proud Boys are alt-right. No, the leader of the Proud Boys is actually not white. So that doesn't make sense, does it? But they try to play up this narrative, right? So Vox is doing this. Trump did not address members of the alt-right gathering for a Portland rally, but did say he's considering designating Antifa an organization of terror. Now, let me stress, that means nothing. Trump can't Trump can say, I hereby designate Antifa whatever he wants. There's no formal way to do this. There are no domestic terrorist organizations. That's not how it works. But I will stress, they have already been labeled as domestic terrorists by numerous agencies. This argument is a waste of time. It was the FBI, it was the DHS. They put out statements where they referred to them as domestic terrorists. We're done. Congratulations. There's no formal labeling process. We don't have official hate groups or terrorist groups. Foreign groups, yes. So here's the thing. I love how they're acting like Trump won't address the alt-right. And this was yesterday at 5 p.m. after we already saw all the videos of Antifa beating regular people. Here's the best part. Willamette Week, which once smeared me, says, Proud Boys wander lost through Portland as police allow wild goose chase by anti-fascists. Police strategy allowed the groups broad leeway to move along streets and sidewalks so long as they remained far apart from each other. Now listen, Trump calls out Antifa. Why? Well, because Antifa has beaten people in the streets, like Andy Ngo. He got beat. Everybody saw Andy Ngo. You don't have to like the guy, but he writes for the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post, okay? We're not talking about InfoWars. We're talking about a gay child of Vietnamese immigrants who was beaten by Antifa. So Trump sees it, he calls it out. Why? It's a real concern to conservatives who want to walk around with their little American flags. Look, you go to Walmart, you can pick up an American flag and walk around the streets, and then people show up to beat you. Listen, the Proud Boys came, smiled for the cameras, and left. They know what they're doing. And then all of a sudden we hear this narrative that why won't Trump call it the far right? Because the far right did nothing. Check this out. In this story, they actually bring it up. They say, let me just read through this because I don't want to just try and just dig and find it. Police made 13 arrests, and the few moments of violence arrived mainly as the right-wing groups attempted to leave downtown in two small buses. Anti-fascists were seen on videos throwing rocks and using a hammer to shatter the bus windows. Later, police clashed with frustrated leftists, arresting several and tackling at least one woman to the ground, drawing an angry crowd for a tense standoff near the Portland outdoor store. Those moments will add to the highlight reel of right-wing groups who seek to portray Portland as a hotbed for leftist violence. But none of the mayhem feared in recent weeks occurred. A major triumph for Mayor Ted Wheeler and the Portland Police Bureau, who have been the subject of intense national scrutiny from right-wing media. Yet, the visiting Proud Boys declared the day of victory, saying they had achieved their aim of draining Portland's law enforcement resources. They pledged to return once a month until Wheeler excises the alt-left groups from the city. I'd like to point out Willamette Weekly is biased. But yes, the Proud Boys declared victory. Why? They didn't do anything. They showed up and waved American flags. Look, it's literally what they do. And I tell people all the time, if the Proud Boys are coming to your town, just don't look. You ever see that Simpsons episode where the advertisements come to life? And they're like, just don't look. The advertisements won't survive if no one pays attention to them. And the same is true for any one of these right-wing groups. But you know what? They're allowed to march. They are. And so let them march. We're good. Okay, I'm sure there are people on both sides who are aching for that fight. There are right-wing individuals who are like, ooh, I'd love to see that fight. I want to go down there and fight. But The core of what's happening is people demanding their right to march wherever they damn well please. And you know what? Everybody would be a lot happier, not Antifa, but the regular people and the right-wing people marching, if they got to just march and wave the little flags. And then it's like, congratulations, the First Amendment, there we go. Instead, Antifa wants to, they live in this delusional state where they think it's like we're in occupied Nazi Germany and they're fighting under, occupied France, not Germany, and they think they're la resistance, and they're like, oh, we must defeat the Nazis, and like, dude, no, like, these old dudes walking around with little flags they got from Walmart are not Nazis. Sorry, you live in a paranoid, delusional state, and they do. There's one really epic video where this black dude comes up, so there's an Antifa guy. He snatches someone's MAGA hat, and he grabs it and refuses to let go. And the Antifa guy is yelling, I'm like, let go. And this guy's like, why, brother? Calm down, brother. We don't need it. At what cost? You're not fighting hate. You need to calm down. And I'm like, bravo, man, bravo. I was scared they were going to beat that guy up because he beat up a lot of guys. And this guy who was doing this, holding the hat, refusing to let go, he's saying, it's not your hat. You got to give it up. He had earrings. And I'm like, damn, dude, someone's going to yank those earrings, man. They're going to hurt this guy. I was scared for him. But they didn't. Good. Probably because, these groups are like very weirdly racist. Let's read a little bit more. Let's read because I want to make sure I highlight the point about how they said Proud Boys declared victory. There was no real violence. A lot of people were scared. They were thinking it's going to be like Charlottesville 2.0. But instead, the right-wing side didn't come with the militias and with weapons, and nothing happened. That grand rhetoric contrasts with what their day actually looked like, wandering lost and anxious through unfamiliar streets while warning each other Antifa was coming. After retreating east across the Hawthorne Bridge, many of the Proud Boys and their supporters got in their vehicles and drove away for a barbecue. That's exactly what I've been saying. Please. Okay, months ago, a year ago, okay, Sean King is going, these Proud Boys coming to our town. I kid you not, he's like laying in his bed with his face like this, and he's like, got the camera all twisted, and he's like, Proud Boys, KKK, coming to our town, disgusting. I'm like, dude, calm down. The real story, it was like 3 guys who were at a bar somewhere. And then a bunch of people marched to this bar, and it turns out they weren't even Proud Boys. And the point I've always made is like, dude, if the Proud Boys are coming, and you ignore them, they'll stand there with their little American flags, or big ones. They'll go to a bar, have some beers, and go, America, woo, and high five, and they'll leave. I don't see what the problem is. But I think when you live in this delusional reality, they're panicked. They're terrified. Regular people don't know what's going on, and they don't watch the news. So when they're told by some random person something's happening, they just believe it. They just believe it. And when these Antifa people who truly live in this paranoid, delusional state tell them that neo-Nazis are coming to march in their town, regular people are like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. But if they just paid attention for 5 minutes, they'd be like, wait, you mean those like, I don't know, Trump hat flag guys who went to the barbecue? Nothing happened. Literally nothing happened. I'll tell you what the problem is. Now, fortunately, Willamette Week is forced to admit nothing happened. They wandered around lost and anxious and then went to a barbecue. I don't know if they were lost. That's a bit of an editorialization. But then you have Vox being like, why won't Trump call out the right? President Trump issued a stark warning to Antifa, the collective of militant anti-fascist leftist groups, ahead of a rally on Saturday in Portland, Oregon, where Antifa activists were widely expected to confront far-right activists. Notably, the president did not warn or criticize the controversial right-wing group organizing that rally that Antifa was planning to protest against. Organizers Joe Biggs and Enrique Tarrio, who did not receive a permit for that rally. I love that clarification. Thank you. I forgot that the Constitution doesn't exist. You know what they used to say during the marches at Occupy? I don't know what the chant was, but it was like, we have a permit. It's called the First Amendment. And everyone on the left was like, hear, hear. We agree. Who didn't get a permit for the rally? You don't need a permit. For a bunch of people to show up and walk around, you don't need a permit. Now, you can get one, right? If you want to have a designated space, if you want like police protection. But when people on the right say, but when anyone says, everybody meet here, you don't need a permit. Nothing you can do about it. The police can declare it unlawful. There's a lot of questions, but they can be sued. It is a constitutional challenge. So thank you, Vox, for reminding us that people aren't allowed to assemble, apparently, much in defiance of what Occupy Wall Street stood for. They say our members of the Proud Boys A group of self-proclaimed white chauvinists with links to white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, even though they denounced it months before and kicked out the people involved. So it's silly to say they have links when they've spoken out against it. I am not a fan of their ideology. Okay, I have openly disagreed to their faces, much to their they were like, really? They asked me if I would, defend the West, refuse to apologize. I said, of course not. I will apologize for things the United States have done. I'm so anti-war. I point to the things America's doing all the time, and yes, apologize for the history of the U.S. Not all of it. This country's fantastic. I'm just not a hardliner. I'm not going to be like, everything America did was just. Well, it wasn't. But our founding principles created a pathway towards a better future for everybody. And we now have one of the greatest, most prosperous nations in the history of the world. I think it is the most prosperous and free nations in the history of the world. Well, it won't be if the fake news won't stop. So anyway, I try to keep the 6 p.m. segments are always a little shorter. So here we have it. The media wants to play this game of, but what about the right? Yes. You want to call out the freaky weirdos like El Paso, go for it. But these people showing up with their American flags are at polar opposites to that ideology. They're constitutionalists. They don't believe you have a right to violate the autonomy of other individuals in the way the guy in El Paso did. They're not the same people. Stop acting like they are. The same is true for regular liberals and Antifa. And everybody is guilty of this to an extent. Everyone, I see a ton of people on the right saying, liberals, liberals, liberals. I'm like, please, we really need, as a nation, conservatives and liberals, to differentiate liberals from the lunatics. Because I will tell you this now, Antifa hates liberals. Hates liberals. They're not liberal. They hate us. They hate us. And they even challenge Bernie Sanders, though they like him more than they like me. Because Bernie's been criticized as being a capitalist reformist, which is where I am. Bernie's a little to the left of me. Okay, therein lies the main point. If we can single out Antifa as a fringe faction of extremists, not liberals, we will do better. We can then bring normalcy back to politics. They need to do the same thing and stop calling everyone who's conservative a Nazi, because it's not true. The Proud Boys have tried to distance themselves specifically even before Charlottesville ever happened. But these people in media, I think, are more aligned with the fringe extremists, and that's why they play the game. That's why they play the game. The thing about conservatives calling, all liberals, all Antifa liberals, is because let me put it this way. When you're on the right and you look to the left, you see the normal lefties in front of you and the crazy lefties behind them, and it looks like a single group. The left does the same thing. They look to their right and they see a bunch of conservatives and a bunch of crazies behind them. So both sides are lumping everyone together. But the difference is that when the left looks right, they see me, a regular liberal, and think I'm standing with the conservatives and the crazy people. That's the problem. So there's definitely criticism to go to the right for labeling all liberals the same as leftists. I've tried to avoid that. I think I've done a good job. But the left tries to label even liberals as right-wing. They're calling Bill Maher right-wing. Come on. I'm done. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Podcast every day at 6:30 p.m. And I will see you all next time.